1 second. And we are live, and welcome back to Consultervation, the RLC broadcast to talk about business and business issues and from a consultative point of view. And it's good to be back. I'm Eric Swick, and I've been gone for 3 weeks on a road trip back east in the States. And it was wonderful. I have family and friends back there, but it was miserable weather. So it was nice to get back to Colorado where the sun shines 330 days a year and into the heat. I mean, back east, it rained probably 9 out of 10 days. It was in the 60s and high of 70, I think, was the most. So it's good to be back. And today we have Kevin Turnbull, who is the president of RLC LA, although he hasn't been in LA for quite a while. Kevin's been in the UK, right?
Yeah, I'm in the UK. I came across, I came through quarantine and decided that if I was going to be here, I might as well be here for a month or so, seeing the family who I haven't seen for, 18, 20 months or something. So I'm enjoying catching up with them.
That's nice. So when are they going to start booting you out, though, and say you're welcome, you've outworn your welcome?
Well, I'm sure they'd never do that, Eric.
Oh, okay. And we have Barb Gay from Watson & Company in Colorado. And Barb, it's great to see you. We're going to be interviewing Barb today and talking about, her background and what she's done. But the topic for today that we want to focus on also is the importance of managing the future and kind of being future forward in your thinking. Because often, it seems like business owners, you get so caught up in the day-to-day, right? In the moment, you're putting fires out, or, you've heard the phrase of, you got alligators that are jumping at you that you're trying to fight off. But you really, we talk about needing to take that time to just think about, where am I going? What's my vision? Where am I wanting to take my business? And it's that future forward look. And, Kevin, I don't know if you have anything to say about that or anything you want to add about thinking that way.
Yeah, I'm really interested in post-pandemic plans and what people are doing about that. And that's everything from, the working from home or going back to the office debate, but also what impact has the pandemic had on your sector, on your industry? Because it has left many untouched, but others, particularly the increase of online retailing, traditional retail has been strongly affected by it all. So I'm interested in talking a little bit about that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So let's get into, talking with Barb, and maybe we can talk about some of this future forward concept in the discussion that we have. I have some questions for Barb. But before we start that, I just want to say, first of all, I've known Barb for many years, and I consider her more a friend than a colleague, although I used to own a CPA firm, and Barb owns an accounting firm now as well. And we did a lot of the same kind of work, working with small business owners, helping them be successful, making sure that they meet all the regulatory requirements for taxes and things like that. And she has a great practice in the Denver area. But I wanted to, talk a little bit about, kind of what Kevin talked about, so 2020, early 21, obviously have been challenges for everyone in business. And I'm just curious, what have you learned about yourself and your business in this last 16, 18 months of craziness? And I know you just came back to the office, right? You just brought your team back, didn't you?
Yes, we just brought them back. Well, the first thing I learned about myself was, if you would have asked me 2 years ago, can I move everybody home and be productive and get things done? I would have said, absolutely not. It won't work. And so I was obviously, as usual, wrong. It did work. I think there is this difference of when you're forced to do it. I wasn't forced to stay home for that long, but when you are forced to move and you have to do it, you find ways of being very creative in getting things done. And you say, well, it's not an option. We have to do it. So I think that's one thing for myself. I think the other thing is right now, Everybody started coming back here probably it's probably been about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
Okay.
And now it's a challenge of who wanted to come back, who didn't want to come back, and who wants to be here. I kind of started it as, let's try Monday through Thursday at the office, everybody working at home on Friday. So we're trying to do a little bit of a hybrid thing there. I have a payroll processor that I don't think I'll ever get back in the office. And because of some family issues, my payroll manager is working more from home now than here, because she has elderly parents that work with her, but that live with her. So it's nice to be able to have those options. I mean, I'm still getting work from people and the productivity, but not having, that seat would sit vacant if they couldn't do some of those things.
Yeah.
So now it's going to be the challenge of where do we end? And in the midst of all this, we're moving our office in 6 weeks. So to a new office. So, I'm not getting too hot and heavy about what our policies are going to be or what we're going to do till we kind of get over into that new office and figure out what that looks like too.
What process did you use to arrive at this decision? Was it a team decision, or was this something you came up? How did you arrive at how you're going to handle this? Because I know in my conversation with other business owners, they're struggling with this decision as well and trying to figure out. And I've heard where, they let the employees decide. I've heard where the owners decide. I've heard where, it's kind of collaborative, but, ultimately the owner has the final say. I'm just curious what your approach was in handling that.
Well, ultimately in the beginning, when we didn't have vaccinations and we didn't have things, it was my decision to say, I'm sorry, you're going to stay home. I need to protect you health-wise, and I didn't want that on me, so I made that decision. And I had some pushback. And what's interesting is the people I had pushback of going home are the people that I'm having pushback of coming back to the office. So it's just hilarious. I mean, you don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
When we started coming back and I started thinking about, okay, the nice part was everybody got vaccinated and talked about it, just openly. I didn't ask, but they just said, hey, I'm getting my vaccine. I'm getting my vaccine now. And so once I got that, then we all started talking about, let's try to shoot for July. And we all had a discussion about it. I think it was just an open discussion, not necessarily a vote. And everybody kind of agreed. I said, I'm thinking Monday through Thursday. What do you think? Working from home on Friday. And everybody kind of said, yeah. So, I mean, nobody really pushed back on that.
Yeah. One of the things that has always admired me about you, Barb, is kind of, the typical American success story of yours, because, you started out at your company in an entry-level position and worked your way up into a management position and then into eventual ownership of the business, which, you see that from time to time, but it's not as common as you would like to see. But I guess from that, are there any, I don't know if I'd call it regrets or anything that maybe you would do different in that path that, looking back on it now, that might be good advice for others? And then what do you attribute that success that you've had to? What is it about yourself or maybe the circumstances as they unfolded that resulted in the success that you've had?
So my biggest regret is that I did not get into RLC or meet Dave Evans sooner in my life. I had people around me that would say things to me about working in your business or working on your business instead of in your business. And I didn't do that soon enough. I didn't pull the trigger. I'm a classic person that got wound up in the fires and all of that. And I also am the classic person that if you ask why I was successful, it was all, my career and my personal life at times were all business. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I think I'm as successful as I am because I worked really hard and I put in a lot of hours. And I'm not, and I that was to the detriment of some of my personal life as well. So I there are parts now, I don't regret that. I chose this career and I love it. But as I look back on my career and life, I would do it very different knowing what I know now.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. It's sometimes I think about, can I just push that button and rewind?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
if I knew what I knew now when I was a younger self, but
hindsight, such a wonderful thing.
It is.
Yeah, it would be that time machine.
But what's nice for me to watch is, I mean, I'm getting close to the end of my career now. I am mentoring somebody to take over for me. And so I get to give him that knowledge and say, don't do the things I did, do it better. I mean, there are certain things I'm proud of the things I've achieved. I'm not going to say it's all bad, because I think I've learned this business inside and out, and I've been able to make it successful. But don't make the mistakes I made. Choose your personal life more than business, because it'll be there.
It's interesting. I just saw the Dave influence when you corrected yourself. Not try, but I am mentoring. So just to mention, Dave is sorry he couldn't be here today. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the broadcast, he's in London today or this week and working with a client, and he just wasn't able to be on the call. So I just wanted to clarify that. I'm sorry I didn't say that earlier. But no, that's a great point. That's a great point. Kevin,
I've got a question. I've got a question for you. I was coaching a 30-year-old guy who worked in an accounting firm. He was the son of the owner, and I was kind of asking him about succession plans and stuff like that, and he kind of went, "Nah." He'd basically seen his father kind of herding cats for all his life, getting people involved and motivated. So my question to you is, what was the motivation behind you going from senior director, senior employee to owner? What caused you to do that?
Well, it's interesting. My dad owned his own company, and I think that I came from a family. I watched that. He was 55 when he kind of got. My dad is of the era that he didn't have a college degree, and so he was a self-made man. So I watched that growing up. Even though I have a college education, and he insisted on it. But I mean, so I watched how hard he worked, and he would say, you always have to work so much harder if you don't have a college degree. You get your foot in the door if you do. You may still have to do the work, but it's so much harder. Anyway, he was pushed out about 50 or 55 out of a big company and started his own company. So I think for me, I saw that, and it didn't scare me. I didn't have that fear of what's small business like. I watched him. He figured out, I got to make money now. He didn't have any employees, which was a new thing.
Yeah.
He worked for himself, but I was never afraid of making money for myself. I was never afraid of being able to make money. I just didn't have that. I'm sure I had fears of that at times, but it wasn't a second guess for me. I just saw it and I did it.
So it kind of became natural to you. It was an obvious stepping stone. Right?
Yes.
I get it.
Yeah, good. So I want to go to that concept of the future and future forward and talk a little bit about that, because you mentioned that you're meeting Dave and RLC and what they've done for you. So can you talk about how you have employed this strategy in your business of kind of this looking into the future as opposed to just being in the moment?
Well, first of all, it starts with, I don't know that while I knew where I wanted to go prior to starting to work with Dave, I don't know that I ever shared it with anybody else. It was always my goals. And I did have a business partner for a period of time. So she and I would talk about where our goals are, but I was never saying to my team, hey, this is where I want to go. I want you guys to come with me. I want us to all be successful there. If we get here, here's what this means for you. Do you guys want to go there? Where are we at? I think that I always had meetings with my team. I think that I had goals of where I wanted to go, but I never really had a framework. I never had something to go back to all the time and say, well, does that fit in our framework? We decided this is where we're going. Am I really making decisions now that are part of my framework? And I was not. I was doing it by the same. I mean, again, not all of it was bad, but I mean, I wasn't always referring to that. Now I find it very easy when I hire somebody to say to them, here's what we are, here's where we are, here's our framework, here's our cornerstones, here's what our beliefs are and our values. There's no surprises when they get in there and understand that.
And what have you seen as a result of having this framework and having this vision and, you know, kind of knowing where you're going? What has that done for you or your organization?
Well, it's helped me to move forward, even though I fight it sometimes and try to go back. It really does push me forward. It's in my head constantly. Is this in the framework? Is this where we're going? Is this what we want to do? And I just didn't do that in the past. I would let it take me. Rather now I think, and I'm not going to say you don't go 2 steps forward and you step back one sometimes because of circumstances, you know, but I also think it's also made me really look at, it's important for people to have a good personal life and have goals for themselves in their personal lives also, because it's not just about the work. It's about what can I do here at Watson and Company that will help me get what I want in my personal life. And then do I have the time in my personal life? You know, one of the things was we always had 2 weeks vacation. And that was kind of where we were forever. And we talked about it. It's not like it's a big thing, but I went to paid time off versus vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we've increased that a bit. It's 3 weeks now. It's not, you know, but, and in the past, I never would have said to somebody, yes, you can be gone for 10 days. I would have said, no, I need you only gone for a week, you know, and those types of things. I'm trying to open up to more of that because I do find people work harder before they go and harder when they come back to achieve those things.
Yep. Yep.
So
what you're saying is you've mellowed over the years. That's what I'm hearing here.
Well, I think the people that have been around me for the past 10 years would say yes, she has. She's mellowed.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned that you had a partner, and last week we had Doug and Cynthia on the show. I wasn't here, but I've listened to the show, and you know, they talked about from a perspective of having family members working together. In fact, they have a couple of their kids that work in the firm as well, and how are the dynamics of that. Talk to me a little bit about the dynamics of having a partnership. Obviously, you don't have a partner anymore, so there were some challenges, whatever. But talk to me a little about that because, you know, a lot of people are in partnerships. And, you know, I've always had this philosophy when I had people come to me, when I had my firm, they said, hey, my best friend here and we want to start a business. And I say, you know, for every partnership I put together, I take one apart. So eventually we're going to sit at this table unless, and then I talk about the things that you really need to put in place to ensure success. So I'm just curious about your journey and what happened.
I think what happened, I think that the partnership was very good in the beginning. And I wanted it just as much as I thought about not having it. There were some things that I don't think I was strong enough or confident enough in doing that I felt I needed the partnership. And I learned from that. I would say the biggest thing for me, if I had to do a partnership over again, would be I tried very hard to have everything up front. I tried to say, let's talk about worst case scenarios before we get into the partnership, because that's when you still like each other and everybody's happy and you're doing everything. So I think my partnership was good for about 5 years. It ended after 10. Unfortunately, I think the part that wasn't good and when it got bad and the communication stopped because we just, you know, it's like a divorce. It's like a bad marriage to some degree, right?
Yeah.
And when it gets bad, then everything becomes a big ordeal. I was sad when it ended because I had worked with my partner for many years. And so, but it was also good. It needed to happen. You know, it's by the time we got to the end, it needed to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were good parts of it too. Again, I don't like to always see the bad in everything. I think it's good and bad. I think I got a lot out of it. It taught me a lot about communicating with people that I didn't. You know, I've never been married. So for me, that partnership was like a marriage to me. And there were a lot of things I needed to learn about communicating that I didn't do well. You know, I was always making my own decisions and that type of thing. So it taught me a lot of that, which has helped me with my team down the road too.
Yeah, very interesting perspective there. That's very nice. Kevin, you have anything?
Well, I mean, I think it's quite difficult to work with family and friends. I'll be straight up front. But talking to Doug and Cynthia, with two of their grown-up kids in the business, they had a kind of a laid-back, holistic. We don't argue. We're all quite reserved as individuals. The chemistry really works. And so for every one of those, like you said, Eric, there's the other one, like the accountant guy I mentioned, who was the son of the owner. And I'm sure he disappointed his dad by not wishing to be the successor.
Yeah.
But you've kind of got to live with that. It's an important part of being a leader and a grown-up and an adult. You can't force people to go down particular routes. And I think that flexibility of mind, going back to our other topic about future forwards, you've got to be really flexible about this. You've got to think what is happening to, what is happening to the business in the pandemic, for example. I've got a client who's in home gyms, so weightlifting equipment, so biggish things, and he's seen his revenues go up from like 3 million to 16 million through the pandemic, and which has been fantastic. But he's been presented with, well, is it going to be sustainable? Is this a difference that's going to last forever, or is it going to taper off, or should I cash in now? And so he's been forced to face a new reality and new challenges, and he's had to think future forward. And I think that's a good example of what the title's all about.
Yeah. So Barb, I know that you're in the process of doing a rebranding, I believe, for your firm. Can you talk about that and kind of what your future forward view is, where you're headed?
Well, it's been very exciting for me to do my rebranding because I was a second generation person who bought an accounting practice. I didn't start it on my own.
Yep.
So, and there was a period of time where it felt like it was still his and not mine. I will say the one piece I do think I grew and kind of took to a different level was the payroll. But again, you try to, when you buy a practice from somebody or you're a second generation, there's little things about it that it's like, it's not mine, it's his name. It's not, even though I wanted to keep the name because I felt I was part of growing that name.
Yeah.
So the rebranding's been very exciting. It's my rebranding. It's Radish Accounting is going to be my new brand name, and Radish Payroll, those types of things.
Yeah.
And
what's the significance of the word radish?
Well, the whole concept of Radish is about growth, and in a global way, growth for me, growth for my team individually, growth of clients, and being able to with advisory help my clients learn how to grow. So it's all about, and it's about an experience of you come into Radish Accounting and it's modernized. It's not, you're going to go into the old accounting firms. We're still going to do the accounting work, which I know is not exciting to most people, but every time you come in, you're going to have experience with the team that everybody on our team will give an experience to that person that walks through our door. And it's about, trying to find out where everybody wants to grow, whether that be personally, professionally, and with your employees or not. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that's nice. When's that happening?
Well, September 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. It's going to be, and it's going to feel like it's mine to some degree. But the nice part of it is whoever takes over from me down the road, they don't have to rebrand. They can still be a part of this experience because it's part of the team too.
Yeah.
All of us are building this Radish Accounting.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because, my name, I used it on my firm, and I often thought, why am I doing that? Because it's not just me. I didn't do much of the work there. It was the team. And, my name doesn't really describe what we do. And so I think that's a great idea.
I'm excited about it. It's going to be different, and it'll be interesting to see, but we're trying to bring the clients in on it to do different types of events. Obviously, the logo that we have, and of course I didn't come up with this because I don't have any of that brain. But the logo that we came up with, the actual radish itself is very modern looking, but the top of the radish is a W. And so that keeps the Watson, it still keeps the legacy there.
Oh, nice.
But it's just that little piece of it that's the legacy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to keep it moving forward.
Yeah.
I think that's great, Barb. You're kind of aiming high. You know, we've had apple, we've had blackberry, now we've got radish. Fantastic.
Good idea. I didn't think about that.
Is there a little bite out of the radish?
No, there is not.
Or a little caterpillar peeping out?
No, yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. So you talked about, that you did this work with the framework. Have you gone back and revisited that?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because as we're doing our rebranding, we're trying to button all of that back down, and we are revisiting it and getting that in line before September 1st, what our next 24-month goals are going to be for that.
Yeah. And how important...
That's a really good point, isn't it, Eric? Worth reinforcing that, you do a framework, you kind of set... You set your business where you are now, where you're going, but it's a live thing because things change. The pandemic comes along, things change, and after a year or 24 months, you might be thinking differently about new opportunities, about increasing your payroll division or doing more accounting or whatever it might be. So it's a live document and needs to be revisited.
Yeah. Yeah, especially since you accomplish things that are on your plan. You put new things on there, right? You have to revisit it. So that's good. I'm happy to hear that you're doing that and that you're focused on the future, even though long term you're not going to be there, but you're going to be there for several more years and shape the future of that firm. That's great.
And I see myself as part of this firm in an advisory type position in the future, more so than in the accounting portion of it.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit. What do you mean by the advisory side of the business? Because I hear that a lot from people that's kind of the trend in the accounting profession, that it's moving in that direction. Tell me what you're thinking. Well,
I see it in two ways. I see there's an advisory part that for your clients, they're all for your clients, obviously, but I see an advisory part to get a client up to speed just in business, period. So give them the tools that they need to, just read their financials or use the information that we provide to them to grow their business. Then I also see it as part of the RLC and creating a framework with them. And actually, starting at that point with them as well. So I can see it in, it's kind of unique. I mean, not everybody is going to buy the framework piece of it, not necessarily buy, but I mean, they don't feel they need that, although I feel everybody needs it. And I would say strongly everybody does. But I think it would start with the framework piece. And then from that, these other offshoots of things, teach me how to read a financial statement.
Yeah.
Which again, some of my team does that, but they don't always have the time to do it with everybody.
Yeah, it's not consistent. And
exactly.
I was just having this conversation with someone, I think it was just yesterday, where, so many people, they go into business because they have a skill, whether it's fixing a car, fixing someone's teeth, cooking a meal, whatever it is, that's why they go into business, not because they know about business and how to manage people. And this person specifically said, I stink at HR. And it's like, well, you don't have to do that, but you need to understand it. And so, I think that's a real need out in the business world, is someone that can help business owners at least better understand all aspects of running a business. And so that you could drive them to working on instead of in the business, right?
Right. And I also think it's key, like you said, for me, I was an accountant, I became an owner. You don't know how to manage people. You don't know how to keep your people. You don't know those skills. You try to take classes and do it. But I do think that the framework itself really helps you to manage those people. I mean, wrapping it all up in that just makes it makes it much better. And I think I've learned that skill to be able to help people so that you don't have a revolving door with your people, because that costs us all money as well.
Yeah. And, I think it brings clarity to what is this business? What is our culture? Who fits in here? And, people need that. They need to understand, where are you going? What is it that you expect? What is acceptable behavior? Those kinds of things are important to people. When you look at surveys of employees and what's important to them, compensation never is at the top of the list. It's always way down. It's those other things that, I think the framework and, having this future forward view helps define for them.
Right. I agree.
Good. Any last comments or words of wisdom from anyone?
Just echoing what you just said there. If I had a dollar for every time that I've talked to business owners or directors who are going on about recruitment and how terrible this new employee is, who, by the way, was great when they hired them a month before, and I keep kind of laying down the mantra that this is just being a manager. You're running a firm of 20 people. This is not a big deal, but you're making it hard by not recruiting well and not onboarding well. And things like the framework, because it's a vehicle for telling people what you believe in and where you're going and all of those other things, it gives people a comfort and improves their productivity. But I'm always at pains to drag it back saying, I don't know why you're tearing your hair out. You recruited badly, you didn't onboard, so what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
You've got an employee who doesn't really know what they're doing that you're unhappy about. We'll sort it out. That's what a manager does. It's not that difficult.
Yeah. But people don't want to take that responsibility, I think, is part of the problem. So that's good. That's a good point, Kevin. Barb, anything last words?
No, thank you. This has been fun. I'm happy to be back on the call, and it's always good to share and try to help people. That's
Well,
absolutely.
I appreciate you being brave and letting us prep you with these questions. But I don't think we're too hard.
We could have been a lot tougher, Barb. You know that.
I know.
Yeah. Well, thanks, and hopefully we get to see you guys next week.
Yep.
It's been great to be here, Eric. Thank you so much.
All right.